Alright, so in this video on testing out Unity's capability of supporting recompile and continue playing, I was going farther into statics again. This time I was testing specifically what if I have two separate libraries. If I have two separate libraries that both contain static references and I only change the code in one, will the fact that that code is in a separate library allow the code from the first library to remain unbothered? What I found is no. It still destroys statics. All of the statics get destroyed. It doesn't like them. Okay, so, and by the way, even though the answer on this one is no, the statics are still not supported, I do have another concept that we'll probably be joining into in a later video on using the serialization process and basically writing a system or to just do all this in one object, or writing some attribute system to actually identify all of the static areas that we want to maintain and serialize them all through one object. Okay. So let's dive into the test cases that I ran here. So first of all, under assets, testing, and again, the source code is all available at GitHub. The link is in the description below. Okay, so we are in assets testing, astatics2, and then under here we have the astatics2 scene with game object that has our two things here, but there's no variables, no fields or anything. All of this gets tested in code or in Visual Studio. All right, and then we have two separate assemblies. We have our architecture folder and our game objects folder. So astatics2 arc and astatics2 component. I have these. I don't have this one named well. That's okay, whatever. astatics2_2. Okay, so this one has a reference to the architecture. So the idea is the architecture is there to support everything else, so everything else creates a reference to architecture so it can use it. All right, so inside of here, I'm going to run the code right away. Let's pause and play. That way we just get our single frame to go. And inside of Unity, I'm going to attach, or in Visual Studio, I'm going to attach it for debugging. And now let's move forward one frame. All right, so in here I have these two classes, astaticsHold, which is our architecture side, and astatics2component, which is our component side. All right, so the one that it just caught on was the astaticsHold. The initial variables, all of the stuff for this static members shows up with settings on here. Local test string, that one is ASDF. That one was set during the awake function, otherwise it'd be blank, and the local test int is set to 1 initially, but here it's set to 2, and we can see it was set. So everything from the awake function was set, plus the astatics2 component is set up on our object other reference. Okay, so that's there. Save it, or well, there's nothing to save. I'm going to continue, and over in the component class we end up seeing the same thing. Our references for this is set up, it's valid, great. So now this, which is another word for instance or self-reference, that's effectively what this is. It's just using this to reference itself. Okay, so all of this has values to it. Now I'm going to stop the code and I want to make a change to the component side. So I'm going to get rid of the log warning, save this, reattach it to Unity, and go back into Unity. So it's recompiling, did everything. Now I want to skip forward one frame and trigger our debug again. Okay. Oh, and that was interesting. I don't know if you caught this, but astatics2component went first this time, but astaticsHold went first the last frame. So, like Unity said before, the order of what objects get executed is not guaranteed. You can't guarantee the order of which ones get executed first. You can do the, what was that one? Default execution order and actually set it that way. But that was just a quick proof while it happened, just to expose that. Okay, so over here we have L equals 2. Oh yeah, and this is just to trigger this. So the first thing is, let's check its static variables. This dot statics, and it's null. Its reference to itself is gone. Its reference from the other object is also gone. So that was kind of expected. I changed code in this one, so it was recompiling this object, and so any references to things on this object would make sense that they would go away. So the next thing is, what about the static references that other one created on its own, that are inside of another library and housed there without touching this? Let's continue, and now I'm in the statics hold. This is the library that was not touched. The code was not changed here. But if I expand out this, and everything is base, again, all the static object references are null. The initial string is blank, not ASDF like we set in awake, and the integer is 1 as set initially, but not in awake where it was set to 2. So the proofs on this, everything in this is saying that we cannot get statics to work. Now I'm going to add a caveat to that. We can interrupt the serialization process and change things, so we can choose to store things that are static in non-static fields, so Unity serialization can pick it up. And that is something where we can transfer it at that moment before serialization takes off. Now, I'm planning on diving into that in a later video, not in the next one. I have a different path that I'm planning on doing for the next one. So the next path that I'm going down is using a tree structure to store the locator service, where it finds it in the parents going up to try to find a supporting object. And basically have a locator service where we can spawn multiple sets of locator services. That way we can have multiple sets of what's local to that locator. All right, so yeah, that's what we're going to be testing next. If you have any comments or thoughts on this, again, please comment down in the bottom. The code, the source code for all of this is under the astatics2 folder that you can find on GitHub. The link is in the description. If you have any thoughts on some area that maybe I'm missing, that I glazed over and I didn't really get into a good explanation on, or there's some areas where you feel like I could test something more, please just feel free just to bring it up, or better yet, bring the source code down onto your side or run your own tests and experiment and try out that additional set. And if you get some results that point into some positive direction or even a negative direction, like you try it and it still doesn't work, but it's a different test, bring it up, share it. I'd love to see it. All right, thanks.